Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Politics Plus Media 101 listeners, wherever you may be tuning in from around the world. Today, we have a very special show with Andrew Lawrence, Deputy Director of Media Matters. He's also an experienced campaign hand, having worked on Democratic races in statewide elections in Iowa, Florida, and Ohio. And maybe most importantly, Andrew is my personal close friend and also a friend of Brady, the dog that you've probably heard barking in the background at some other point. Today, we have a really interesting topic at hand, and we have a Twitter expert, if I might say so, for Andrew, as we are discussing Twitter, what it means in the political context, and Elon Musk. But before we get into the topics of the day, last night, this is Monday night, and this episode is released on Thursday. There was an American football game, the real football, none of this soccer stuff, where Tom Brady made perhaps one of his best regular season comebacks yet as a NFL quarterback in the last 25 years. So, Andrew, quite frankly, the Bucs looked like shit, and so did Tom Brady for the whole game. And then 2 minutes left and he comes back. What were you thinking, and how should we view not only this game but maybe the season?
Yeah, man. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know or doesn't follow me on Twitter, I'm a huge Tampa sports fan, huge Bucs fan. I got to be careful what I say here because I actually worked those hours that the game was on. I don't want my boss thinking I was too distracted, but that was the most boring, most awful game. I could not stand watching it until, I guess, 5 minutes left. Tom Brady became Tom Brady. And, it's so interesting. There was I guess it was about 7 minutes left. Bucs were down by 2 scores, and they had a 4th and 10 on about their own 25, own 30. And Brady wanted to go for it, and he would not come off the field. And they made him come off the field to punt the ball. And everybody, from Troy Aikman, the announcer, everybody was saying what a stupid, awful decision it was. And it ended up working out, and it was really amazing. But that Bucs offense, first of all, the Saints always handle us. We cannot score against them. I was I think it was a Sunday night game last year where the Saints won. It was 6-0, maybe 9-0. We just cannot score against them. We cannot beat them. It might have been the first time Brady has beaten the Saints in the regular season with the Bucs. I know we beat them in the playoffs one year, but yeah, a win is a win. We're 6-6 and riding high in the NFC South.
You're the top of the division. And for folks who maybe aren't aware of what we're talking about and why the decision not to go for it is so important. So Tom Brady is the greatest athlete, arguably, of any sport around the world ever. I'm biased. I named my dog Brady, for goodness sake, after Tom Brady. But Andrew, he's been around the league for over 20 years, and your head coach, this is the first season of his second stint of being a head coach, and he got fired, I think, from the Jets for just not being able to put a winning team together. So it must have been surprising to have somebody who's relatively new in the head coaching world, this is his second go around, relatively little to no success, go against what Tom Brady was saying. That had to be bizarre as a Bucs fan to just see happening.
But that's his job, right? Coaches coach, players play. And, Tom Brady, like you said, one of the best team sport athletes of our time. Of course, he's going to want to stay on the field. He probably never wants to punt, but it was the right call. It was clearly the right call. And, I've been losing faith in Todd Bowles throughout the season. I think the clock management has been awful. The game planning has not been great, but it worked out last night. Thank God. Yeah.
It did. And folks are probably wondering, why are they talking about sports? And I think this is a perfect segue. And it's because Twitter is very big for sports journalists. And you and I were discussing beforehand that there's a contract in baseball that's breaking, and the news, you were telling me that it broke on Twitter. But considering we are, we tend to be a very serious podcast here. We have members of Congress on. We have think tankers talking about these geopolitical issues. I wanted to start out the show and explain why we are having a discussion on Twitter. And more pointedly, it's really not a massive social media platform when you look at Instagram or TikTok or Facebook and the users and the numbers. But what is the importance of Twitter from your perspective to politics and to political media? Why does the platform matter at all?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that when you just look at the user numbers of different social media sites, different social media apps, I mean, it might even be the smallest out of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of those. But the thing that makes Twitter so unique, there's a few things. I think first of all, just the real time updates. You know, you and I were talking earlier before this call about Aaron Judge contract that was reported by John Heyman, and then immediately he kind of walked back. I'm not sure exactly where that's at right now, but it's that real time. It's so quick. You know, you hear something, you put it out there. Somebody has 60,000 followers or something, or it gets retweeted by somebody with a large following, and all of a sudden it is out there like sort of everywhere. You don't get that with Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. But you know, I think the thing that really sets Twitter apart from other social media apps is just its outside influence. Because of that rapid response, because it's so quick and so real time, you have journalists of every field, you know, sports, lifestyle, politics, obviously, local reporters are all following everything that happens there sometimes on a minute by minute basis. I mean, people are addicted to it, and you can really, you know, if you make a good enough point, you can somebody with 200 followers can influence what some of the most influential people in the world think about a subject if they make a good enough point and if it gets seen. And that's where Twitter's real influence comes from.
So then it's not only folks in the ivory tower, the elite political journalists, the political staffers or former staffers like myself and yourself interacting with each other then that derives all of its power. There's also a value in your regular person being able to interact with your member of Congress on the platform or media matters on the platform. And there's some type of feedback. Is that where some value is too?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that is so interesting about Twitter that you do not get from other social media is the way that it's set up with follows and followers. Um, you end up sort of, with Facebook, it's like a friend group and it's your family. And with Twitter, you see something funny or a smart point and you end up following that person. And, you know, look, I'm a middle-aged white guy, but I'm exposed to views of people that I might not otherwise be exposed to, a 22-year-old person of color in Detroit or something, you know, that I wouldn't see on Facebook. Like I just wouldn't, because they're not part of my family. They're not part of my friend group, you know? So I think, my views, my social views even have changed quite a bit since I started using Twitter the way that I do about 5 years ago, once when Trump came into office and all of that. But, you know, I think the way that it exposes you to different segments of American life that like you may not otherwise see, just given, you know, where you grew up or the people that you hang out with. So I think that's one of the major benefits about Twitter. And so then that trickles up, you know, to the politicians when they're reading their replies for their constituents, you know, people that maybe aren't apt to call the office or that might not write a letter to their congressperson, but their point is being seen on there. So I think those are all real world benefits to Twitter and just the way that it sort of influences the way that people see the world.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The way that, so I follow a lot of right wingers, not like I've actually had to unfollow some folks, and same on the far left, but like I've had to unfollow Ben Shapiro, for example, because I see some of the stuff he says. It's so stupid and infuriating that I just can't watch it. But on the positive side, you get to see Eric Erickson is another one who I had to unfollow, even though he was on this show. He was just saying some stupid things, and I just get the urge to troll these folks something terrible. But then, you know, that doesn't. I always shouldn't be doing that.
Well, it's not really. I mean, Twitter is.
I love trolling folks.
Well, and it's not a place where you're gonna change somebody's mind like that. You know, it's not it's not somewhere where you're going to have an actual long form discussion, about something like that, and change somebody from being a staunch conservative to being a little bit more open minded. It's and the thing is with those bigger accounts that you just mentioned, Ben Shapiro, for example, like you don't have to follow him because like you'll see it. You'll see it if he says something stupid or if he makes news, like you're going to end up seeing it. So, which is another thing about Twitter that I like. You don't have to be plugged in really to the right groups in order to see this news come across your feed. You're gonna see it.
That's where I was going. I get to see the right wing, I get to see the left wing, and we're talking within reason here. We're not talking about like Proud Boys or Antifa. And I feel like I'm able to, even though we all have our own bubbles, we're able to get a taste, maybe a smattering of what the discourse is. And I know that you follow, for example, the right wing news on a nightly basis. So you're really immersed in it. But every once in a while, there'll be somebody who posts a video. Maybe it's even you. You'll post a video of something stupid or a cry on from Tucker Carlson. And I'll be like, oh, wow, this is pretty scary stuff. So let's get into maybe how the platform, since you've started using it right up until Musk purchased it, how it's evolved. Because from Trump's election, with the information that our intelligence agencies compiled regarding Russian troll farms, Russian manipulation of social media, there was a very large emphasis and focus, at least it felt like, on social media platforms, on content moderation. Hell, Andrew, even Section 230, which we don't need to get into, but on the left and right. And then, 2016, 2017, 2018. And then it seems to have died down. Where did Twitter kind of fall in the responsibility aspect of things? Were they similar to Facebook in that they were okay with breaking everything and worrying about it later? Were they more responsible? How can we understand what Twitter was prior to Elon Musk buying it from a content moderation standpoint?
Sure. Well, that's a huge question. I mean, we could probably talk about that for a couple hours alone, I think going back to, look, I've had a Twitter account since probably 2014. I don't remember what my bio actually says, but I didn't really start using it until probably 2015 when Trump came over and when Trump was running and we were getting through the primaries. And I think that, thinking back to that time on Twitter, 2015 to 2016, it was overrun by groypers, white supremacists, extremists.
What's a groyper?
Just alt-right, Pepe the Frog, 4chan, like
okay,
edgelords, and I apologize if I'm using too many online terms, but just think about terrible people. There were terrible people, white supremacists, that type of thing. And Twitter really cracked down on that after Trump took office. And the site did get better. You asked how they're doing in comparison to the other social media apps. And I think they're doing well in comparison, but that doesn't mean that they're doing a great job. I think that you look at their accounts out there right now, huge accounts. Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire is one. Libs of TikTok is another one that are clearly inciting harassment. There are bomb threats being sent to children's hospitals right now that have been targeted by these large accounts. And Twitter is, even before Musk took over, was letting these accounts run wild. You look at the mass shooting at the gay bar in Colorado as well, over what appears to be over a drag brunch, which is another huge target of these right-wing accounts, So I think they're doing a better job, especially when compared to 2015 and 16. I mean, Twitter was really becoming a cesspool at that time. And, I'll give Jack and Twitter some credit. They attempted to clean it up, and I'm not going to say they did a great job, but it's certainly better than it was before. But now, and I know we'll get into this a little bit more, but now with the Musk takeover, I mean, it's open season on Twitter right now from what it feels like.
We are working our way up there, and I just want, so you understand where I was coming from, there has just been so much negative attention paid to Facebook and how they quite frankly don't give a shit. And Andrew, I'm saying we have independent researchers, regardless of their political views. I'm saying they are playing it down the middle and not actively bringing in an agenda, like reporters, for example, from the New York Times that we've had on this show that went into great detail about how Facebook was in large part allegedly responsible for sparking a genocide in Myanmar.
Right.
And right.
Yeah.
And serious election things where even take away the United States, where they're responsible for a platform being used to manipulate elections, whether it be sitting authoritarian. And it just seems like there weren't any changes. But when it comes to Twitter, and I'm not praising them or saying that they did a great job like you did, it just didn't seem like there was that vitriol directed at them for just not caring. It seemed like there at least was some type of effort put into place. But I did want to touch on, before we get into Elon Musk and his takeover, you mentioned libs of TikTok. So my understanding is that it's an account that, and I don't like this account. It feels like what they're doing is they're posting kind of cringy TikTok videos of folks that are in the LGBTQ community, and they're highlighting these folks. I think the argument that they would make is they're just shedding light on, I don't even know what the argument is.
No, that is their argument. Their argument is we're just posting videos that other people put up.
Okay, so then how are they inciting violence? Help me understand this, because it's clear that there's something going on here.
Well, first of all, the bigger picture here is what they're doing is they're farming some of the most extreme examples in order to paint the entire LGBT community in that light, and so that puts a target on the LGBT community right then and there. But they also, maybe the first time that one of their videos led to harassment, you could give them the benefit of the doubt, but they know what they're doing at this point. They know that when they post a video of somebody, they're putting a target on their back. Same thing when they announce that someplace in some random club is going to have a drag brunch. They know that they are followed by Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3%ers, these violent extremist groups that are going to show up there with their AR-15s and attempt to shut this down through intimidation, and if that doesn't work, through violence. And it's one of those things where they and that's their goal. Like that's what they're trying to do is to get these events shut down and to sort of erase the LGBT community. I mean, they don't want them visible at all, And it's very interesting because libs of TikTok, like, they don't really post very many libs or like TikToks, they're going after the LGBT community. And I would say 90% of the time I have no idea what the person's political view is that they're going after, because they don't say what it is, but I guess they just assume because this person has pink hair that they must be a lefty, which, like, probably, but that's not what they're saying that they're doing. So it's a hub of hate, and they know exactly what they're doing. They know that when they post a video, that person is going to get possibly doxxed, probably death threats. And it's a shame to see, even before Elon, to see Twitter allow their platform to be used like that.
I think what you said that really struck a chord with me is essentially they're taking the most extreme cases of folks in, the LGBTQ community, and they're painting, by just focusing on these videos, this is the representation of that community that they are providing to their followers. So therefore, in a way, they're distorting and trying to do so as a goal is trying to distort the way that this community is viewed by their followers. And an example is, and this may not be a specific video, but I've seen a lot of videos posted from them of people identifying as animals, for example. And that kind of, from your perspective, and I would agree with you, that is done to distort the discussion around pronouns and really be prejudicial against trans people. So that's one problem.
Well, and this is, and it's not a new strategy. Okay. I watch, Tucker Carlson. They do the same thing with immigrants. They'll scroll names of undocumented immigrants that committed crimes in an attempt to say that, like, all brown people will do this to you. If you let immigrants in, they're going to come for you. So this isn't a new strategy. It's something that they've done over and over probably for decades. I haven't been tracking it for decades, but definitely for years, and with various different communities. So, they do the same. They lump all the Democrats, you hear them talk about the quote unquote left all the time. And, I see the Fox News will turn an entire segment out of just some random tweet from a professor at like Pepperdine University who said that meat should be illegal and we should only eat tofu. All of a sudden, that's what the entire left thinks, We see it over and over again. And right now, the LGBT community is the target of that. But it's not specific. This is, they pick their targets and they go after them. And this is certainly a strategy. And Libs of TikTok, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, all of these people are picking up on this and doing it. And they're endangering people as well. And, there's just no end in sight to it, especially with new Twitter ownership.
The last point I want to get into before we discuss new Twitter, and there's a lot I want to discuss with you on new Twitter, is when we're looking at banning somebody, like let's specifically talk about Libs of TikTok and inciting violence. You're talking about bomb threats at children's hospitals. I personally, my life was saved numerous times at Boston's Children's Hospital because, I had kidney problems when I was an infant. And so I have an affiliation with the hospital, and Libs of TikTok posted a video, and then there were bomb threats like immediately to the hospital.
There was another one yesterday. Yeah, there was another bomb threat there yesterday. Yeah.
I think there were other hospitals too. Other hospitals that they had posted where there were.
Yes, there are. Yeah. I think Vanderbilt might have been one. I know Vanderbilt was targeted. I'm not sure if they got a bomb threat, but Chicago had one.
It's for trans medical treatment.
Just gender affirming care, because they provide gender affirming care. Yeah.
So when, I guess the question here is when can we just blame their followers? Like, when can we just say that they have a bunch of, because they're not going out saying go threaten. I don't think they're not going out and saying go threaten these hospitals. When does it fall on the responsibility of the account that is posting on Twitter versus their followers? And should people be banned for dog whistles? I guess, like, what's the line? Help me understand.
I mean, the line is when, when these accounts target Boston's Children's Hospital, and then the next day, like, they get bomb threats. And, there's, imagine being a family, your kid is in there for God knows what. You're probably terrified anyway. And all of a sudden a bomb threat comes in, and so it's, I understand that it might be a little bit cloudy. But we can use common sense here, like these hospitals weren't targeted before. These accounts said something, put a target on their back, and then the next day, a couple days later, they're getting bomb threats, and that's that. Look, if I own Twitter and somebody was using my platform to send bomb threats, to encourage people to send bomb threats, then yeah, they would be booted. And you're right, like they are kind of using dog whistles, Justin, because it's something needs to be done, or Tucker Carlson, most watched cable news host in America, has said multiple times, probably a dozen times, that remember when we lived in a country where people would get beat up for saying things like that, telling people that this wasn't Tucker, it was his guest. I think it was the woman who runs Libs of TikTok, saying that, like, it's time for people to arm themselves, while talking about gender affirming care and stuff like that. So no, like, recommending to your viewers, like, hey, you need to arm yourself against these people. I mean, that's not saying like, hey, you need to go shoot them and murder them. What they would say is like, no, you need to protect yourself. That's what I was saying. But like, no, it's not. Like, they're encouraging this type of thing. And you are allowed to read between the lines there. Anybody with a little bit of common sense knows exactly what they're doing.
No. And for the audience, you are probably one of, if not the foremost expert on Tucker Carlson, on Sean Hannity, because you're monitoring these shows and you're specifically monitoring these shows for extremism. So I think it's important when you're referencing these shows that folks understand that this is your job. It's not like
Yeah.
me trashing Tucker Carlson. It's, coming from a place of insight. Is that how you would explain it?
I watch Fox News so you don't have to, basically. Yeah, exactly. Well, and because, look, Fox News is incredibly influential. They are the propaganda arm of the Republican Party, and the Republican, even more so than that, I would almost say that the Republican Party at this point is the propaganda arm of Fox News, because the Republican Party does what Fox News tells them to. And you can take a look at just the last election. Tucker Carlson on air demanded that Republicans talk about nothing but crime and inflation. And that's exactly what they did, and going back to the Trump years, I'd see Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity say Donald Trump needs to do this. And the next day it was turned into an executive order. And there's numerous examples of that. So, Fox News is incredibly influential. And I think it's important that people keep up with what they say there. But it's very hard to watch if you're not inside that bubble. So I can understand people like not wanting to watch it. And that's what Media Matters is there for, basically.
And what you're saying is really prescient, because my experience in the Republican Party in 2016, I worked at the RNC and we didn't watch Fox News, Andrew, because we understood that they would just run our talking points. So we would give them talking points. It really wouldn't be fact checked for the most part, and they would just run them. So at that point, they really were our microphone. And what our goal was is to influence more mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN, through opposition research, which you have experienced doing on the Democratic side, I have experience doing on the Republican side. And I think the other point that you're making is 100% correct. The power during the Trump administration, it completely changed, where the RNC was kind of running the show with the talking points and everything that Fox would do, or the grassroots Republican movement. You had Sean Hannity literally be one of the top advisors to the Trump administration on policy issues, which is
right.
Weren't there like text messages released between Trump and Hannity around the impeachment, and he was advising him on what to
around
do
January 6th,
January 6th, and how to respond. And so it is important. I guess the question is, and we had you on our show a while ago and we asked you this, is there value in showing the general public this type of extremism that is going on, or should we just try and ignore it and push it in a corner? Where's the line here? Because I'm sure that people are critical, saying, hey, you're just promoting this hate. And how do you respond to that? Like, what's the difference between you and libs of TikTok, if we're going to be really pointed?
Well, first of all, I'm not encouraging murder, so that's one thing.
That's a fair difference.
As far as I know, no one has sent a bomb threat to a children's hospital because of one of my tweets, so that's a pretty big difference right there. But no, I think with proper context, like it is important for people to know what is being said on these shows, and because it is incredibly influential. And I think that, people look at my account and, I work at Media Matters. They know that when I post something, it's critical, and they give us so much material to work with.
What's your Twitter account, just so that everybody listening to this can follow along?
It's my name with an underscore in between, but with the A at the front.
Okay.
No, I think it's important that people know what is being said on Fox News. I think it's important for people to be up to date. And I think that, what I try to do is, provide a quote. If I'm just tweeting out a video with somebody's quote, it's going to be a quote where it's clear that this is extreme. This is wild. I mean, one of my earliest big tweets, it was earliest Big Tucker tweets, was him saying that immigrants are dirtier, make America dirtier and poorer. And, that's just something that's awful. Like, I knew that people would have a visceral reaction to that, What's so interesting about that, this was probably like 4 years ago at this point. But he says 10 times worse stuff now, and it doesn't get any attention at all. It's that Overton window has been shifted so much. 4 years ago, when he said that, there were calls for him to be fired. There was a whole campaign, not just from Media Matters, from advertisers, from civil rights groups, for him to be fired. And now you very, very rarely see that type of movement, despite the fact that he's saying much worse stuff now.
So I just wanted to circle back to the original question, because I had been grappling with what is the value of Media Matters for a while. And honestly, I think that the Kanye West episode crystallized it for me. And it really put everything in perspective, that this really is a very valuable service. Because I'm somebody that's in politics, so I know a lot of these narratives, and I'm like, I go to Media Matters and I'm thinking, I know that these people are saying crazy shit. Like, I get it. When you're criticizing Fox News, I understand. But the Kanye stuff, I don't watch InfoWars, right? For example.
Right.
And I
Good,
don't follow
good.
libs of TikTok. And I know you guys also follow libs of TikTok. So when Kanye went on Alex Jones and he was saying really crazy shit, like he was praising Hitler, and at first, I just saw people reacting on Twitter, saying, "Oh my God, Kanye's being anti-Semitic," and I kind of rolled my eyes, like, "Yeah, the guy's anti-Semitic." And then I think it was a Media Matters clip from one of somebody that I follow, because you follow them and you retweet them, and I saw the clip of Kanye praising Hitler, and I'm like, "Holy shit." This provides context to other people commenting on how outlandish this really is. It's showing you the proof that this type of stuff is so far out the mainstream and so not okay. Like you said, you guys watch this stuff, you guys monitor this stuff so that we don't have to. So I think it's totally different, for example, than libs of TikTok, who is targeting private individuals because they're trying to slander everybody who's in this minority group, right?
Well, and I mean, look, we're punching up as well,
Yes.
you know, whereas libs of TikTok is punching down and looking for vulnerable people and attacking vulnerable groups. You know, I think that when we're pointing, I mean, we're not even, people say like we're attacking the right wing. We're just pointing out their lies. A lot of times it's just their exact quotes that we're putting out there, you know, and because these people are so extreme, it's widely accepted that they are extreme. You know, we're not lying or anything about these people. So, I think that's another major difference as well.
They're public citizens, right? They're working in the public. They're either in the media or in Congress. So it's literally their job is to be out there.
It's not a kindergarten teacher that's being targeted because they have a rainbow flag on their desk, you know?
Exactly. So I want to now finally get over to Elon Musk, because you mentioned punching up. We're dancing around the term red pilled people.
Mm-hmm.
So Elon Musk purchased Twitter. He spent $44 billion on it. It was at the height of just ridiculously stupid money going into the tech world, into startups, and from venture capital firms. The stock market was at the height of everything. You work in media. Media Matters is literally a monitoring company, among other things. Do we have any understanding of how Elon Musk came to spend so much money on Twitter and ultimately purchase it? Like, was this a thought out business decision?
No, it clearly wasn't, because he offered them, first of all, he offered them a price that was, even at the height of the stock market and everything, he offered a price that was way more than Twitter was worth. The price that he offered, $54.20, is a marijuana meme, you know, because he thought it would be funny.
420.
Yeah, he thought it would be funny and probably didn't realize at the time that it was legally binding. And I mean, I've seen all these theories about like how he's trying to destroy, one of the biggest megaphones for left, people that don't have a voice, and for groups on the left. I think it's just ego, man. I just think it's his giant ego. I think that he's very online. He's always posted a lot on Twitter, and his net worth was $200 billion, and he could buy Twitter for, 44, and he wanted to be the king of Twitter. And I really think that's all it is. I think it's his ego. And, I think that, somebody having that much money and being surrounded by yes men all the time and being told how right you are all the time, I just don't think his brain works anymore, at least not in the way that we understand a normal functioning human being's brain should work. It's crazy.
I could see it fucking me up if I had $200 billion and everybody who hangs out with me basically just wants to hang out with me because I'm powerful and have money.
Yeah. And then they're all telling you how great you are, and like, oh no, don't worry that your cars are exploding. They're changing the world. You're totally going to get us to Mars in 5 years, dude. We're totally going to be at Mars just because of you. The guy was an Iron Man, for Christ's sake.
In his mind, he's the real world Tony Stark, right?
Yeah. That's what he thinks. That's what he's been told. That's what he's been told, and he has enough money to just surround him with people who think like that.
To go in a little bit further, Andrew, you were the one who kind of told me this, and I didn't realize it. Like, I thought Elon Musk was this great inventor, of PayPal, and he invented Tesla, but that's not really his origin story, is it? That's not how he made money, was inventing these groundbreaking and earth-shattering products, right?
Yeah, I mean, like he did not found Tesla. He bought Tesla from the person that founded it. He's doing the same thing with Twitter, and then he takes credit for it. Same thing with SpaceX. All of these companies. He, if you want to read his bio, he got a nice chunk of money from mommy and daddy. Got lucky with PayPal, got a huge payout. Had a couple other companies that failed, but he ended up making money off of them. And he's just sort of snowballed that over and over and over again. His biggest gift is selling himself. I mean, he's P.T. Barnum, really, with a lot of money, is what he is. And he's created this image of himself. I guess to his credit, he's tricked a bunch of people, but the guy is not a creator. He's a bullshit artist. There's a screenshot that goes around Twitter every once in a while, and it's just the thumbnail of a YouTube video. And it's an interview with Elon Musk, Elon on one side, the interviewer on the other side. And the title of the clip is Elon Musk, I will have people on Mars in 10 years. And then underneath it says posted 10 years ago. And that's what he does. You take a look at Cybertruck, for example, the truck that he announced 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe, and said that it was going to be coming out, very soon. There were taking orders for it. That's nowhere near coming out. There was a tweet from June of this year from the New York Post saying that Elon Musk says that the Tesla robot will be out in several months. That was June of this year. I mean, we're 6 months out. This is what he does over and over and over again. He builds up this hype. He gets money from investors, and then he bails, and nobody ever calls him out on it. It's really amazing. It's a great work if you can get it, I suppose.
Yeah. I think that because during this whole Twitter thing, he's basically an investor, and I thought he was some type of creator. So that kind of changes your perception when you realize he's just really an investor who's very, 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 very successful. Obviously, the most successful in the world at doing this type of stuff. Now, he bought Twitter. He surrounded himself by, first off, he bought Twitter, and before he got into charge of Twitter, I think he started making all of these tweets about Russia and Ukraine, and there are reports of Elon Musk essentially parroting Putin talking points about a settlement between Ukraine and Russia. And he was always like retweeting or quote tweeting or replying to this guy, David Sachs, who I didn't know, but he's kind of like a red pilled investor who's this libertarian type of get the government off my back. I'm a creator. You're just in the way. The government fucks everything up. And he's also culturally very right wing. So it seems like the team at Twitter that Elon is kind of interacting with and going back and forth with is more to the right wing, but we have not seen Elon's political ideology, to my understanding, until very recently, right? Everybody kind of assumed that he was liberal because he's a believer of science, and the extreme Republican Party really doesn't believe in science. He's a believer in climate change through his electric vehicles, and that aligns with Democrats. He's a believer in space exploration, another thing that aligns with Democrats. But Elon, ever since purchasing Twitter, has kind of come out and made a point of it to decry censorship and be a free speech absolutist. So I guess the real question is this guy just really right wing? And is he parroting right wing talking points? And have we just pictured him wrong the whole time?
I mean, all that is just bullshit. Like it's all part of the grift, hiding what he really was. I mean, look, what it always comes down to with these super rich guys is class. They want lower taxes, period. And that is it, you know? And so like, yeah, he bought Tesla. So everybody thought that he was this left wing clean energy type of guy. But then, you know, it comes out that Tesla's making their money by selling carbon credits to the other company, to dirty companies, in order so that they could meet their carbon requirements, you know, which is totally offsetting any green action that Tesla was doing. It totally offsets it. So no, I mean, it is just all bullshit. Like, it's all bullshit. He wants lower taxes, Justin. That's it. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want, and you take a look at some of these investigations. You know, there was an investigation announced yesterday. One of his companies, Neuralink, which is trying to put computer chips into monkeys' brains, killed a bunch of monkeys. And so now that is being under investigation, and he doesn't want that. He's very anti-union. Tesla has come under fire for discriminatory practices, for segregating their warehouses and stuff like that. And he wants the government off of his back for all of this stuff. Probably because it's a lot easier for him to make money when you can treat your workers like shit. He's been right wing for forever. You know, I think that he was, you know, huffing his own farts there for a while, with people on the left thanking him for making clean energy cars and stuff like that. But all he cares about is his bank account, you know, and that's it. And that lines up with the right wing.
So when he took over Twitter and he's taken these right-wing views and begun to implement them, so he fired a bunch of people. And quite frankly, I don't give a shit about overpaid Silicon Valley tech workers getting fired. Like, for me personally, could not care, didn't shed a tear, was not concerned. These people probably should have been fired, a lot of them, a long time ago, from my perspective, having done PR for Silicon Valley firms. There's just an ethos to Silicon Valley that I think is very destructive. And I think a lot of these employees probably share that ethos because that's where they work and grew up. But the media freaked out. They freaked out that Elon Musk firing these people was going to ultimately break Twitter. Twitter has not broken. Since he's taken over, what has been the worst things that he has done materially to change the platform? Is it the firing of folks, or is it the free speech absolutism?
Well, I got to push back on all of this. First of all, I mean, I just disagree. I don't like seeing people get fired. So these people have worked there their whole lives. They build a life probably out there. I'm not going to guess at what their political leanings are or anything like that. They weren't unionized and they should have been. Elon tried to fire them by not following the law in California and things like that, which you have to do. You know, he's being sued over that right now. So I'm going to push back a little bit on that. And then he's not a free speech absolutist. That's complete bullshit. He wants to force you to hear what he has to say. You know, he is certainly not a free speech absolutist.
He paints himself that way, though.
Well, sure. Yeah, because he's a bullshit artist, because it's part of the grift. Because you have to understand that all you have to do to make money in the right wing is say the right words. If you just say that you're a free speech absolutist, if you say that the DOJ was targeting Donald Trump unfairly and the Russia hoax, and you just have to say the right words. And that's what he's doing right now. But he's certainly not a free speech absolutist. He's reinstated some awful accounts, but there's plenty of others that he hasn't reinstated. If you're a free speech absolutist, you do that. You know, he reinstated Kanye and then personally banned him. You know, personally made the decision to ban him. And he should have. You know, Kanye obviously should have been banned, but that's not free speech absolutism either. You know, like, there is a line, and it's just, where do you draw that line? So the premise is just bullshit. You know, I just don't buy it in the least.
So you're losing sleep over the folks at Twitter who were making hundreds of thousands.
But
okay.
Well, you don't know how much they made. You know, I mean, I'm sure that there were people there towards the lower end of the salary spectrum that don't have more than a couple of months saved up. Even that, you know, I mean, there's people there that have like put their entire lives into learning that craft of engineering. And I would also say, you know, look, I've always thought that Twitter wouldn't die like that, just go black immediately. I think, you know, I've always thought that if he continues to allow horrible people to post whatever they want, then good people are just going to go away, and Twitter will turn into 4chan, and that's how I see it ending if he continues down that path.
You and I had discussions, and you never said it was going to break or this was going to be, the end of Twitter, despite a lot of liberal columnists freaking out. Maybe it was groupthink, maybe it was virtue signaling, but they all kind of freaked out. So all that I was trying to say is, personally, I really don't give a shit about somebody coming in. I'm not saying I endorse it, right? But I don't lose sleep over somebody buying a company, saying it's bloated, and then firing folks, and the product that I use from that company not functionally, to my eyes, changing. Now, where
it hasn't yet. I mean, it hasn't yet.
It hasn't yet. But it's like, dude, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Like, I have seen so many stories when he was firing folks. Maybe it was a month ago now, Andrew. It was a while ago. A couple weeks ago, like, oh, Twitter's gonna break when the World Cup starts. Twitter's gonna break tomorrow. Like, Twitter's gonna break tonight. And it's like, to the point where I'm inured to the fact that I just don't trust. I view it as alarmism now, because so many people on the anti-Elon spectrum, and I do not like the guy. I am not a fan of what he's doing, generally speaking, with Twitter. But so many people have made these claims that Twitter was going to break.
There's drama queens on Twitter, dude. Like, there's drama queens on Twitter. Like, there were a full week there where people were posting their goodbyes.
Yeah, they're going to Mastodon, and then the next day they'd be posting on Twitter.
Tweeting away. Yeah, exactly. And whatever. I mean, look, I get it. Like, you hear that 90% of the staff is gone, and I don't know how people imagine an app working, but that's not how it works. So it's not going to just go offline immediately just like that. But no, I mean, I think the bigger fear is, the bigger danger to Twitter going away is it being overrun with Nazis and white supremacists and people making death threats. And I mean, look, I'll just stop posting. Like, I just won't open the app anymore, and I think a lot of people are like that, and then when you get to that point, when it's just harassment and hate and extremism on there, then the app is dead. And I don't mean dead like going black. I mean dead like nobody's going to go on there anymore,
Yeah, like, people aren't going to. Yeah, no, and I agree. If Twitter was just left or just right, and especially just take away the hatred, if it was just left or just right, I would not have fun on the platform. I think the platform is fun because you're interacting with people you agree with, you're interacting with people you disagree with. It's like an ecosystem of its own. Sure, it's its own bubble, but there are different viewpoints in it. And it feels like Elon Musk is legitimately trying to drive people on the left-hand side of the spectrum, whatever that means, right? That aren't red-pilled, that aren't true, dyed-in-the-wool partisan Republicans, off the platform. So I guess that's my next question for you is, we are seeing him unbanning folks like, I think it's Charles C. Johnson. I know that there were rumors that he would be unbanned, but I think the creator or the person that runs the Daily Stormer.
Yeah, Andrew Anglin. Yeah, he's back.
What's our perspective on him unbanning these people? I'm assuming you don't think that this is a good thing.
Oh, I mean, obviously not. Like, spreading white supremacy is not a good thing. Letting the guy that runs the Daily Stormer post whatever the hell he wants, no, it's not a good thing. And it'll kill the site. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if content moderation is still a thing, then these people won't last very long, and they'll be rebanned again. But and this is where the firing people gets into. The content moderation team is gone. You take a look at the child safety team, they're completely gone. And so when you say that you don't feel bad for these people that are getting fired, there's actual danger to some of these teams being let go just willy-nilly with absolutely no thought to it. But I don't think he's trying to drive the left off. I think that he thinks the left won't go away no matter how many death threats they get. And he's wrong about that. He seems to think that Twitter is a necessity. And I do think that people get addicted to Twitter and it's really fun and your friends are there and all that stuff. But, if every single time you tweet, you get hit with 100 replies of, death threats and pictures of Nazi ovens and helicopters with people hanging outside of them, and your DMs are full of snuff films, you are not going to log on. He seems to think that, like, I want to have a discussion with people who think that trans people should be murdered in the streets. And like, no, I don't want to have a discussion with that person. And so, like, again, I just think it's ego. I think it's ego. I don't think he really understands what Twitter is.
I have to preface, you have 70,000 or roughly thereof Twitter followers. I have 2,000. So I'm not getting DMs of snuff films. I'm not seeing a lot of this harassment. My Twitter experience, aside from when I tweet at Glenn Greenwald, like, you suck, you're a Russian asset, just because I love trolling him. Then I'll get some trolls back if he were to highlight my account. And now, like, when I attack Elon, even if there's like one like on the tweet, I see 13 trolls or 14 trolls pop up. So that's like been the extent of my experience changing.
It's and I don't get it that bad, man. My female coworkers, my LGBT coworkers, the people I work with that are minorities, they get it bad, man, like really bad. And like, yeah, like I've gotten some serious death threats in the past, but nothing like what some of my coworkers get. And that was before Elon even took over. It was an issue.
So do we expect him to continue to unban these people and let hate speech run rampant? Will he ultimately up his moderation game? Where do we see the kind of the end game of, the dude who runs a Daily Stormer? Like, that's just nuts to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you look at I don't remember which right wing app it was. It might have been True Social, that the Apple Store wouldn't allow. And the reason why is because they didn't have content moderation.
Gab, right?
Oh, Gab. Yeah. And Gab's not allowed. Yeah. Gab's another one. About a week ago, Elon claimed that Apple threatened to take him off the App Store. That is not confirmed at all. It might have just been bullshit. But, I think that if Twitter turns into nothing but swastikas and death threats, that there is a threat of pulling that off, and another thing is, I mean, look, we talked about how much money he paid for this, $44 billion. Probably, I've seen estimates that he paid twice as much as what it was worth at the time. And maybe, 4, 5, 6 times as much as it's worth right now. He needs to make his money back. And Twitter it makes their money off of advertising. And, I'm sorry, but like, Toyota doesn't want their logo next to a swastika. Nobody, there might be a few companies that wouldn't mind, but for the most part, these companies do not want their logos next to a Pepe meme death threat thing. Like, they just don't want that, and you can't force them to spend their money on your company. So, and that's always where Twitter, that's, all the content moderation that we see on social media, it is meant to protect advertisers, because these companies realize that that's where they get their money. Elon seems to think that the people who use Twitter, the people that post, are his customers, and we're not. We are the product that he is selling. And that's what he doesn't get. Maybe he's starting to get it some, but we are the product, and he's selling us to these companies in order to bring in advertising dollars. And so, no content moderation. The product that he's selling to advertisers is garbage, and they're not going to want to be a part of it.
No, but I think what you're saying is pretty interesting, because you're not taking an alarmist view. What I just heard there is basically Elon's going to have some restraint put into him based on the need to make money. So there will be, an upper bound to the crazy shit that he can allow happen on this platform, and therefore it's unlikely to die. And you just previously said that if there is no upper bound, it would die, because it would drive folks like you, folks like me, and then the larger Twitter accounts that are, center left, even center right, probably off the platform, because they're not going to deal with this.
Not even political, dude. Just normal.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how many
sports
stupid
folks.
Accounts that just post dog pics all day and, crap like that. They're not going to want to see swastikas, on their timeline all the time, But, I don't know if Elon is thinking that clearly, dude. I don't know if he understands that he needs to make money and this is the way he needs to make money. I think that like his ego is so out of control that he thinks that he's Elon Musk and it's just going to work out no matter what.
Yeah, because he's basically detached a little bit from reality. Because when you have $200 billion or whatever the fuck it is, like, like, and let's be fair to Elon in a way. We kind of touched on this earlier. Like, I think $1 billion definitely. I think $100 million distorts your sense of reality. So if somebody has 2,000 times that amount of wealth, and they're a celebrity and they're like basically what people view as Tony Stark, like you're gonna be a little bit different.
Just detached from reality, man. Like it just makes me think Sam Bankman-Fried, I think that's his name, the FTX guy,
SBF.
Last week he said that he's completely broke. He only has $100,000 left. It's like, dude, like you have $100,000. You're not completely broke, like they don't get it. Like it's a different world, man. It just breaks your brain.
And there's no way that guy didn't stash away like a couple $100 million, but that's that's literally like a 5-hour show. So Andrew Lawrence, it sounds like that ultimately there's probably going to be some type of middle ground where there will be more hatred on the platform than before, but potentially Elon will come to his senses because he'll see a balance sheet or advisors or something will step in. Advertisers, maybe even, will step in and say, hey, if you go too far, we're not going to come back. And I have seen reports, again, I don't know how much we can trust this, but apparently Apple has resumed spending like, I think $100 million on the platform. So maybe he's signaling to these folks that he's not going to let it get too far. Can we take any solace in that?
It's hard to say that when he's letting the Daily Stormer guy back on right now, and this is something it's going to be a slow burn. Like it's not, these people that he's letting back on. And look, there is no content moderation at this point. I mean, there is, I've reported quite a few tweets that have been in my replies and have not seen any report back from Twitter on stuff like that. Like people are getting away with stuff that they weren't able to get away with earlier, and they're going to continue to push the envelope. I don't think Elon's going to listen to reason. What I actually think is going to end up happening is he's just going to get bored and he's going to name somebody else the CEO, or he'll find a way to wriggle himself out of this and pawn it off to somebody else. Let's say he does step away and name somebody else CEO. It just, is it going to be like Masters, some lunatic, or is it going to be like somebody who actually knows what they're doing and sort of understands the business model? I think at this point he's so entrenched in right-wing bullshit that it'll be some lunatic who will allow moderation to cease. But we'll see. But I don't think he's going to be the CEO long term. I certainly don't. I mean, I can't imagine that the Tesla board is happy about what they're seeing right now. Like,
one of my friends is an investor and he's fucking livid because his net worth is just plummeted.
Yeah, and it's just that whole we were talking about earlier about how his entire deal is just sort of building this image, and that image is shattered now. I mean, unless you are a hardcore Elon person, 6 months ago, if you weren't read up on this guy and his life and all of the controversy swirling around him, you knew him from Iron Man 2. You knew him from your Bitcoin friend who called him Tony Stark. That's really all you knew about him. But at this point, like, it is impossible to look at what he is doing with Twitter. And I mean, dude, I'm not getting into a Tesla. You know what I mean? If this is how he runs his company, like cutting corners, firing people, his entire business model is quote unquote, let's get hardcore. It's nuts, dude. I'm not getting into a 740 pound piece of metal going 70 miles an hour that was built by this guy. That's insane. And I can't be the only person that's thinking like that at this point.
So Andrew, another topic that we really haven't hit on this show, we really haven't hit the libs of TikTok. And then we had you probably a year ago, we discussed Twitter, but I think that this is a different, more interesting conversation we've been having. And we were discussing the Hunter Biden laptop earlier, and not necessarily the laptop, but Twitter files, I think is what Elon Musk and the right wing have been calling it. And Elon Musk really has been interacting with a lot of right wing extremists. I opened up Twitter Spaces the other day, and I saw Elon Musk on the stage with Kim.com, who is an active U.S. felon. He's avoiding the U.S. government because he's a
fugitive on the run. Yeah.
He's a fugitive on the run. So Elon Musk is like being interviewed by this guy. I saw Michael Cohen, who is a former felon, Trump's former lawyer, the fixer, the launderer of bullshit. And then there were a bunch of other people like Seb Gorska, Bowling, the former Fox News host. I sent you the picture. There were just a lot.
Yeah.
Ian Miles Strong, like a lot of freaks were on that. I was stunned that Glenn Greenwald was not on that stage and didn't find a way on that stage.
Right.
But that is to say that he's interacting with a lot of these people, and he's also using Matt Taibbi as a PR mouthpiece for him. Yes. So I wanted to get into Twitter Files, which the way that it's been presented to me, Andrew, and I haven't read much media on it, I haven't looked into it, is basically that it's about Hunter Biden's laptop. So what should we make of Twitter Files? I haven't seen much of the mainstream news. Is this a legitimate issue? And can you just even explain it to us? What the fuck is going on?
I will try. Yeah, I'll try. I mean, you go back to before 2020, a couple of weeks, I think it was 2 weeks before the election, the New York Post put out a story that they had secured Hunter Biden's laptop. And that was basically all that the story was. And Twitter and Facebook didn't allow shares of the link to the story, essentially shutting down the story. And, it's whether or not these social media groups overreacted, a lot of people think they did. And I do think that's fair criticism that they overreacted in not allowing that to be shared. I think we also need to take a look back at where we were in 2020, coming off of the 2016 election, where you had the presidential candidate begging Russia to find Hillary's emails and get them out, the whole WikiLeaks thing, all of that type of stuff. And I think, I think social media companies are in an incredibly difficult position here, because when you have bad actors like the New York Post, Rudy Giuliani, President Trump's lawyer, Steve Bannon was involved in this. Known liars, people that are known to sensationalize in order to sway elections. And something like this right before the election, it was unconfirmed even at that point that this was Hunter's laptop. And it essentially still is unconfirmed. And it wasn't even the laptop. It was hard drives that the person who said he had the laptop made, and copies, what this computer repairman said, what were exact copies of Hunter's laptop. But we don't know if that's true, so all of this stuff. And, you worked on campaigns. I worked on campaigns. I don't know if it was the same for you as it was for us, but I know every campaign I worked on, we knew, the communications team knew that you can pitch any story you want a week before the election, and it's basically impossible to get the media to run with it because they don't have time to vet it. It's just too close to the election. They're just not going to do it. And here in this case, you have Twitter, who is not, they're not set up to vet these stories before they go out. They're not set up to see if it's true or not. And it smelled like bullshit. It really did. And the FBI had warned them, all social media groups, about bad actors trying to get stuff out there and using their platforms to sway the election. So, I think it's important to understand the very, very difficult position that social media companies are being put in. So that being said, what Elon was trying to do, this has been huge, a huge thing for the right wing since then, is saying that Twitter and Facebook censored this story and that amounts to election interference. So it wasn't a fair election and blah, blah, blah.
And before we get into that, right? Let's draw the line between, so you went over this, but when the FBI, I think they censored or didn't censor. I think they asked the New York Post not to run a story on the laptop. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it was all we've heard about the FBI was from a old Mark Zuckerberg interview talking about this.
Okay.
And he said that the FBI came to them and warned them that there were going to be hacked materials coming out that that they thought that weren't true, and that it was going to be an attempt to sway the election and stuff like that. And so Zuckerberg said when Facebook saw the laptop story, they just put two and two together and figured that's what it was.
Okay, so not even okay. And what I'm trying to do here is, so then it sounds like there was no violation of the First Amendment with news outlets. And I'm putting Facebook and Twitter aside because they're not news outlets, they're private companies. I saw on Twitter a lot of folks decrying media outlets' decision not to run with this hacked laptop material. So anyways, it sounds like we don't even have confirmation from what the right wing is claiming, which is that the FBI stepped in and said, you cannot run this as the New York Post. And that would potentially be a big story because that's potentially a violation of the First Amendment and a bunch of other things. So let's put that to the side because when we get into this social media, this social media aspect of it, it's very different than a media company. And I just wanted to make that delineation for our listeners before you continue explaining the Twitter files and what the right wing is claiming.
Sure. Yeah. And it's, these platforms don't want to be used like that, and they don't want to be known for that, which again, I think they're in an incredibly difficult position here in choosing what to do or what not to do. But the right wing, they blame Trump's election loss on this. They said, and now keep in mind, like there was at this point, like even still today, this is, what are we, 2.5 years later or whatever. Like I still couldn't tell you what the controversy is. I couldn't tell you what would have hurt Biden's election chances because of the story. It was a lot of innuendo. There was an email where Hunter said he was going to set up a meeting with the big guy. So they all say like, oh, Joe was obviously the big guy. But even then, like there's nothing really nefarious about that. Joe Biden wasn't in the government at the time, that type of stuff. So I'm still very unclear as to what the controversy that was proved with the laptop is, but that's neither here nor there as far as this goes. So one of the big things when Elon first bought Twitter, you had the right wing, the conservative media bubble demanding that he reveal what happened with the Hunter laptop story, and he released some emails and some private messages with Twitter people on Friday night. He gave it to Matt Taibbi, and I mean, there's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. And there was one example that he released. A contact from the Biden campaign contacted Twitter, contacted Twitter, and asked them to remove some tweets. And the screenshot that Taibbi provided had the URL of these tweets. And some people found these tweets on the Wayback Machine, which archives old websites and stuff like that. They found copies of these tweets, and it was just pictures.
So the tweets existed.
The tweets did exist, and they were taken down by Twitter. And the tweets were pictures of Hunter Biden's dick. And
Jesus.
Yeah, so obviously the Biden campaign wanted those pictures taken down, and obviously Twitter took them down. And so all right, from there. Now conservative media is saying that it's a huge scandal that the Biden campaign had a contact inside Twitter. And no, political campaigns have contacts, I've been involved in campaigns we call newspapers all the time and ask them for corrections or to change things. Or, I mean, that's just regular stuff. Like it happens all the time. There's absolutely no scandal, so you have that.
It felt like my former boss at the RNC had Maggie Haberman on speed dial.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just all the time. It's like that's just a regular thing. Like, of course, campaigns are going to try to do that, and especially if it's pictures of your son's dick being out there. Like, yeah, they're gonna try to get them taken down.
And Andrew, when I heard this story, and you explained it to me a little bit when we were hanging out watching football, I was thinking to myself, wouldn't it be a bigger red flag if Joe Biden, the private citizen, didn't try and get dick pics of his son taken down.
Right. And you know, so there, it's what this is. I think there's a few things going on here, you know. And first, I want to make it clear, like what Elon Musk revealed, like there's just no controversy there. Like it's a nothing burger, and
so it's not a violation of the First Amendment, you're saying?
Right. Well, there was no government involvement here at all, you know. So there's that. Then you also don't have another thing is like, oh, big tech put their thumb on the scales for Biden, and like, no, like that's not what happened at all. Another huge part of this story, I think, what we're seeing right now is the right wing media. A huge part of their electoral strategy is working the refs, mainstream media, you know, and what they need is they need mainstream media to report on their bullshit uncritically. They need, you know, the next Hunter Biden's laptop story, they need it to be like Hillary's emails. They need 25 stories a week on New York Times front page saying another batch of Hillary's emails come out, you know? And they didn't get that with the Hunter Biden story. That's the big thing. And so what they're trying to do right now is trying to shame the media. And, you know, thank goodness, like nobody's really buying it outside of their bubble. But the thing is, it is happening inside their bubble. This is just something that we're going to hear from them for the next 15 years, you know, and it doesn't matter what the facts really are. I mean, I still hear on Fox News, I still hear them blaming the Green New Deal for the blackouts that happened in Texas like 2 or 3 years ago.
There is no fucking Green New Deal.
The Green New Deal is legislation that has never passed, and they still blame it for the Texas blackouts, you know, and it doesn't matter. And that, you know, that was something they started blaming it right away for those blackouts. And it came out right away that like, no, like you're full of shit. And they just kept on saying, and they will just keep on saying.
Don't get me wrong. I'm okay with people blaming AOC as a moderate Democrat myself, but you can't make shit up.
Yeah, well, that's just, I mean, yes, you can. You absolutely can. I see it happen every single day, dude. It happens every single day. And so, and I just think that's a huge part of the strategy right now is attempting to work the refs to shame the media into just uncritically reporting whatever bullshit they throw out there next time. And look, for the most part, the mainstream media does. You know, you take a look back at this previous election, the crime narrative that took off, that started mainstream media. You look at Benghazi and her emails. You look at the Ebola scare of, I think that was 2014. You know, I mean, the migrant caravans is another example. Critical race theory.
I can personally get into and corroborate what you're saying with 2016 because, you know, I was a senior opposition research analyst at the RNC. So my job was to shovel as much shit as I could into the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC. And when the, you know, Assange, who was whether literally or only in practice running a foreign intelligence operation, basically against Hillary Clinton, when they released the WikiLeaks emails, it was my job with my colleagues to go through all of those emails, Andrew, whether in context or not, flag anything that was relevant, and then create a narrative that would get attention and shovel it out to the media. And the media was eating this stuff up. Now, WikiLeaks was not Hillary Clinton's emails, but because of what you're saying, where the mainstream media had covered the illicit Clinton email server or frowned upon Clinton email server, they had covered Benghazi, but the email server ultimately got conflated with the WikiLeaks. So you had basically every single week in October, end of September, in October, a new batch of WikiLeaks emails coming out, to the point where it used to be, it was Podesta's emails, it was Neera Tanden, it was a lot of the former Obama folks, and it was campaign emails, where ultimately, because of what you said, the mainstream media was so willing to just publish anything that was scandalous, and they didn't really have a good grasp on things. You had these, I remember Don Lemon on CNN. He said another batch of Hillary Clinton's emails are coming out. And they completely conflated the WikiLeaks with the email server. And my personal belief, obviously Jim Comey played a big role in it, but the media's willingness to take that shit and just run with it is a large reason why, maybe one of the defining reasons why President Trump won in 2016, because they conflated WikiLeaks with the server. So it really is important. And what I'm hearing from you is they're basically trying to set up a similar situation where they can use some bullshit opposition research that isn't even true, that's made up, a week or two before the election for their October surprise in 2020. What is it, 4?
Yeah, 2024. And what's so ironic about this whole thing is that the controversy here is supposed to be that uh, Twitter management was in bed with Democrats and attempting to sway the election with them. And here you have the exact same thing happening. You have Twitter's CEO trying to manufacture a scandal in order to help Republicans electorally. It's the exact same thing that they're accusing Twitter's previous management of doing. It's really, really wild watching it sort of play out.
From a Media Matters perspective, I want you to put on your professional hat here. What should we be paying attention to regarding Twitter files? Because personally, I was largely ignoring everything. Maybe I think I read a CNN article saying it was a nothing burger. But I also didn't take the perspective that this could be a strategy for 2024 or trying to influence the next election, that God forbid we're going to have a President Trump or even a President DeSantis as a result of this. So should we be ignoring it, or would Media Matters say we need to focus on this, and what aspects of this should we be focusing on?
More than focusing on the story of what Elon released, I think it's important to push back and just point out that it's bullshit, or else it'll just become one of those things that is Watergate 2.0. I mean, look, you have Fox News right now saying that people need to be arrested over this, that crimes were committed. And it's important to push back and say, like, no, that's not true. Because if you don't, that type of stuff will take hold and will take root. And it paints the Democratic Party as completely corrupt. And, it confirms all of the biases that right-wing media is trying to push forward, So I think it's important with context to sort of debunk this stuff. But it's, inside the bubble, inside the conservative bubble, this is the second Watergate. This is the biggest story that's ever happened. We had Tucker Carlson last night say that it's proof that the Democratic Party is attempting mind control. It's really, really out there, and it's just being completely made up. And in the past, the point of making this stuff up was, like I said, to get the New York Times and all of that stuff. At this point, this story in particular right now is very much confined inside their bubble. And I think the best that we can do is just sort of keep it there with the pushback and with the truth, and the truth is that this is bullshit. It's completely made up out of whole cloth. And this is the big tech CEO putting his thumb on the scales for one particular party.